Okay, here we are. Today we shall be looking at Introduction to Indices, and this is a topic that those that will be going to SS1 class in the next school session will be introduced to, and also those of us that will be going to year 10, talking about schools that use the British or other Western curricula. You will deal with indices. Okay, so today briefly I'll look at the Introduction to Indices. It's clearly written here. What indices does is to show us various ways of handling repeated multiplications. If I have repeated multiplications, how do I handle them? You know what I mean by repeated multiplications, okay? If I have stuff like, say, you are given 2 multiply by 2, multiply by 2, okay? Multiply by 2. This is a case of repeated multiplications. We can have multiply by so many numbers too, okay? So what would the result be? So what indices does is to give us a short way of handling this kind of repeated multiplication. What does indices tell you? How many times are you going to multiply the number 2 by itself? Say you want to multiply 2 by itself for 20 times. The idea of indices will simply tell you to write the 2 and then raise it to power 20. So this short way helps us to capture what would have been a lengthy and sometimes tedious and boring multiplication. That is what indices does. So it shows us various ways of handling repeated multiplication such as this. Okay, now having said so, there are rules or laws of indices. Take note, there are rules or laws of indices, and I'll briefly touch them if time would permit. But even if time does not permit, what I'm going to do next, okay, still going to be beneficial to each and every one of us. Okay, so here we are. Most times we see numbers that are written in this format. You see a number written like this. The number A is written, and on top of A there seems to be another number or another term X. All representations such as this fall under what we call indices. This number that is seated up here or that is being carried as a baby, you know, because it's up there, we can call it the power. We are all familiar with the word power. We can call it power. If you don't call it power, which other name can you call it? There's another name. We can still call it index. Index is another name for that number which is written up there. Okay, we have index, and if it is more than one, the plural form of index is indices, which is the reason why we have this topic. Okay, but if it is just one power, we call it index. If you still don't want to call it index, you can call it exponent. you know Generally, writing numbers in this way we call it exponentiation. So we can call the number x is the exponent, or the exponent, as the case may be. You see, very easy. Okay, so having done so, how about letter A, which carry the load? Letter A, which is seated down here, because it is seated down, it's like a support. So letter A is called the base. Letter A is called the base. Generally, on problems that have to do with indices, all you need to look out for, very important, is to identify the base and also the power. If you can identify the base and the power, then the rest is ordinary applications of the rules of indices. So it's your place to identify the base and the power. Lastly, before we draw the curtains for today's class, there are times when the base is not an integer. What I mean by integer is not a single term, a whole number. It can be a fraction. We can have stuff like this where I have x. Look at this. I have x over y, and then the whole of this is raised to power m. Clearly, what we have here enclosed in brackets or parentheses is a fraction. So the base in this case is not just x, it's not just y, but the entire fractions, x over y, while the power is still m. Now there are cases also where we could have the base is an integer, but the power becomes a fraction. Okay, stuff like this. If I have p raised to power, what do I use here? I can say U, mu over V. Can you see that? In this case, P is the base, while the power is not just U, it's not just V, but the entire U over P. Lastly, anytime you are given a problem on indices that involves decimals, either you have a decimal as the base or you have a decimal as a power, please endeavor to convert from decimal to vulgar or proper fractions or improper fractions as the case may be before you go ahead to simplify your problems. When you do so, it makes your work easier. Alright, so this is where we'll draw the curtain. Stay tuned for more videos from us. In case you've not clicked the follow button yet, do so. Share our videos. Thank you.